Yacht A. Hello, everybody. Or I should say Yacht A, Yacht A, Yacht A. I hope you're well. I welcome back. Welcome back, listeners, and welcome back to those of you who are new. Welcome to our family. I am going to check in. So I usually check in with you all just quickly, and I have a poem for us. And so I'm looking forward to reading that and then getting to the yummy stuff and introducing my friend. So, what's been going on with me? Believe it or not, it's been 5 weeks. This week will be six. Yes, that I have not gone on a plane. Yeah. And I've been loving it because I've been sleeping in every morning. I've been starting my calls about 10, 11, which has been beautiful. I have been making new dishes. I'm getting back into cooking again. I hadn't cooked for almost a good year. I just lost interest, but I'm cooking again. And I think you all will enjoy this is that I said, okay, I got to finish this rug. So I'm back weaving and I'm really loving it. This year has been great, but this past 5 weeks, because, it started on my birthday, July 1st, to say I'm a little year older, but I have really been resting. And those of you who follow me on social media, every Monday I talk about rest and deprogramming how we see ourselves and how we show up and to eliminate what we think is urgent and perfect and to have us rest more. So I have been doing really good about resting these past 5 weeks. So that's me. That's my update. I'm in a really good place. Okay, so take a little sip of water here. I got a poem for us. And I'm looking forward to reading this. And those of you may or may not, I think in the second year, I had this beautiful grandmother on my podcast. And it's a woman, she's an Ojibwe great grandmother. And her name is Mary Lyons. And this is her book called Wisdom Lessons. So I'm going to read from that today. And the name of the story or poem is called Ownership. All right, let's take a listen. Ownership. The world around you is of your own making. If there is chaos, then you feed off it. If there is happiness, then you created it. If there is both, be careful that you don't fall. When you wake with the day, be thankful for this gift. What you do this day will follow you forever. Who you connect with today is of your own choice. Wherever you choose to journey, don't forget that you are leading the way. Ooh, I love that. Seek out your dreams. Look for laughter. Trust in the ones that have contagious smiles. Believe in yourself, knowing that you have contributed to change today. Remember, life is short. Dreams are big. Remember to live your life and not someone else's. Live your life happily and make at least one dream come true for yourself today. Sending out tobacco prayers to all to believe in this gift of life and to know that they make life happen for themselves. I love this. Yeah, it's a perfect title, Ownership. Thank you, great grandmother Mary Lyons. We love you. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing what our guest thinks about that poem, that writing. All right. So I'm going to introduce our friend, my friend. He's my friend, but he'll be your friend next. And so today, I was really looking forward to today. I had asked my friend a couple years ago, and life is busy. We're all doing things, and it finally came. It came when it needed to come. And so it's a special conversation because I've known this person, oh my gosh, at least for 4 decades. I know I'm aging us, but it's true. At least 4 decades. It's crazy. We went to school together back on the Navajo res. And I have good memories of him when I was in cheer squad. He was like one of my followers. He'd be cheering. I'm like, I say red, you say blue, you say white, and he'd be right there. So, but we also were in music and band. And I think one of my fondest memories also is we were in drama class. And so he's beautiful, fabulous. Anyway, we were in class together and we went to school together. And what's beautiful about knowing an individual for this time frame is you get to see them evolve. You get to see them unfold like a beautiful flower. And we get to watch them leave home. We get to watch them discover their purpose. We get to watch them become leaders. And today, yeah, we get the honor of hearing the story of my friend here. And my friend here has touched countless lives. My friend is his name is Elton Naswood. He is Diné, an advocate, an educator, a storyteller, an executive director, someone who has just dedicated his life to creating healthier, safe, and more loving places for our Indigenous people. Yacht A. Elton, welcome to Real Native Roots. Please bring your voice into this space.
Yeah, it's a Vicky. Thank you very much for that wonderful and beautiful introduction. And you reminded me a lot of our times together. And you're right, almost 4 decades. That's amazing. Um,
We're old.
Yay, we're old, but we still have a connection. That's the beauty of friendship, right? That we're still able to share the joy and the accomplishments with each other. And when we see each other, we have that wonderful connection and uh, you know, remembrance of the memories that we had and we shared, and just being in space with you again is so beautiful. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, tell folks a little bit about like your introduction. I know that it's important for us to tell folks our clans, and I love to hear your thoughts about great grandmother Line's write up, her poem.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for starting with that poem. It really made me kind of think and reflect on my own experience and my feelings at this moment, right? So thank you. But yat a sheya Elton Naswood and shea tohan inch na tabaha bashashin na kaidane e deshache tetness and e deshanella dia yadan inchle. What I said is, hello, my name is Elton Naswood. I am of the Near to the Water clan, born for the Edgewater clan. My maternal grandfather's clans of the Mexican people, and my paternal grandfather's clans of the Tango people. This is how I identify as Navajo. I also identify as a Nugle individual, a gay male, and a two-spirit individual as well. And a lot of times I tell folks that first and foremost, I am Navajo, but I also have other identities that kind of intersect with each other, depending on my conversations, my environments. But very happy to be here. I am currently the executive director of the Two Spirit and Native LGBTQ Center for Equity. And I live right now in the Shoshone Cheyenne and Arapaho lands of Denver, Colorado. But I'm originally from a place called Whitehorse Lake, New Mexico, which is just east of the Chaco Canyon National Park and Monument. But I also grew up in Winter Rock, Arizona, most of my life, and that's where our paths cross, right? So.
Yeah.
Um, but I lived away from the reservation now since I graduating high school. I guess I would also consider myself an urban Indian. Hey, just kidding.
Well,
Uh,
one man one time corrected me. He's like, "You mean you're a native in an urban setting?" And I'm like, "Oh,
oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Because when people ask me where you're from, I have to clarify. Like, I'm from Whitehorse Lake, New Mexico, but I live in Denver, Colorado, right? So I get that correction, and that's true. Um, But very fortunate enough to be in the position that I am now. It has been a journey, which I'll probably share during this podcast. Um, but in terms of the poem, I think it really made me reflect on the possibilities in a way. Um, Grandmother Lyons talked about dreams, right? And what dreams mean. And I think as Native people, we kind of take dreams, I would say, like to the next level sometimes. Like they really do have an essence and a purpose, right? And sometimes it could be sacred, sometimes it could be not so good, but most times it's about what we see in our lives, right? And so I kind of took that part of the poem to help me reflect to see what I want to do next, right? Get one of your dreams. If you dream something, then achieve it. But it also made me reflect on to use a different term, but kind of the carpe diem, right? To assess where you are
Mm.
now, but to think more so in the future, right? Um, and as a Navajo person, I think I always have that understanding of sa naya b'kehoshua, which means to live a long, happy life, right? So I'm on that journey now. Hey, I'm a pre-elder status. Hey,
You're
yeah.
late fall.
Late fall, but always an auntie. Just kidding. But you know,
Actually, I think we're in our early fall.
we're in our early fall in a way, yeah. But the young ones are starting to serve me meals and stuff, and I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of like this. I get to eat first. Hey.
I need
Uh,
to go eat with you because I'm definitely not being served.
Not yet. Oh, okay. Yeah, but yeah, I appreciate that term because in the hustle and bustle of things, at least in my life, it's good just to reflect on some words and thoughts. But
Mm.
yeah, and to be honest, I've been dreaming a lot lately.
Me
Uh,
too.
yeah, yeah, which is great. And I get up and I think, wow, what does that mean? And in one of my dreams recently, it was about someone, and it really felt real. So now I'm thinking, what does that mean to me? What does my spirit and my heart telling me? So, but yeah.
Well, when we get offline, you can tell me who that someone was.
Hey, I'm still looking.
Are you
Hey,
still looking?
yeah.
Oh, well, I love your observation and what you thought of the poem because when you had mentioned purpose, it really landed with me because she was saying like we all have a choice every moment too. We make a decision every day, right? We make a decision, get up to fix our bed, wash our face, brush our teeth. Like every moment we're making a choice. And like who we surround ourselves to, that's a choice. And I thought, wow, it is. Yeah, who am I surrounding myself with? What kind of choices am I making? And so thank you for your insight about her thoughts. And thank you also for, as you were introducing yourself, mentioning, I love that when you had said, I have other identities depending on where I'm at. So it made me think of, I have different identities depending on what part of the ecosystem that you're in, right? So it makes me curious because I always like to ask, who shaped Elton? I always like to ask, who are the people who shaped you? Who are the lands that have shaped you? I always like to get a sense of like your people, your parents, your grandparents. So tell us a little bit about who shaped you and the lands that have shaped you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I finally got to a place where I feel very accepting of myself and and my identities. And a part of that is being a part of the LGBTQ two-spirit community. And my life has really had its different aspects as a part of my identity, but I feel like right now I'm very at a good place of acceptance and understanding. And a part of that has to be with just the way I was raised and the values that I was given.
Mhm.
I was raised at a young age by my maternal grandparents who lived in the Whitehorse Lake area. Both of them didn't speak English. Um, we lived in a hogan, no running water, no electricity. And I say I was raised by them primarily during my early age because my mother was in nursing school. So while
I
she was
see.
going to school, they kind of took care of me.
Hmm.
Um, and it was my maternal grandmother, son, who was kind of my protector. And I often feel when I think about it, like she knew I was Nutley, and she knew
Yeah.
how either my cousins or other relatives um, may have seen me, but kind of had, they would pick on me as well.
Hmm.
In a loving way. I mean, in a loving way, but she would often protect me. And one of my vivid memories of her is that she always wore brown. That was her favorite color. So she had this Masani skirt, a brown skirt. So I would hide under it and put it over me, like when they would try to look for me or bother me. But she really, both my maternal grandparents really um, helped in my understanding of Navajo
Hmm.
culture, language, because they didn't speak English, right? And just those givings to me of waking up early and herding the sheep. And, my grandfather was also someone who was very observant in my life as well. He taught me the structure of like, you herd the sheep, you bring them back, you got to care for them. You got to get up early. Um, which was important. And one of my vivid memories of him was that he outlived my grandmother. My grandmother passed when I was like in elementary school, so early on in
Oh.
my life. But my grandfather lived quite a good life, and he was present at my high school graduation from Winter Rock High School. And I remember he was there, and he sat in the front, and oh, I get emotional. And I was on stage, and I remember just seeing him and looking at him and kind of how proud he was, of me. And, I think a part of that is just that he appreciated that I got an education, right? Something that,
Yeah.
our grandparents never really experienced in that way. So that was a beautiful memory that he made it a point to be at my graduation. So those are two very influential individuals. And then also my mother. My mother was a single mom per se. I was raised by her. As I mentioned, she went to nursing school, and she was the only one on my maternal side that actually got a more formal education.
Mm.
And so her perspective was, you got to get an education to live a good life, right? And I think that always stuck with me, and you know, in the pursuit of where I ended up in school and going to graduate school. And now sometimes I look around at my place, my apartment. I was like, this is what she meant. You're comfortable, you have your fire, you have your water, you're safe, right? And she
Mm.
always kind of instilled that education will provide for you. So yeah, she was a pillar. And then just her strength. And I often wonder now, I mean, prices are high now, and kids are going back to school. And I was one of those that I wanted the cute stuff, the nice shoes. And then I just wonder now, like, how did she do that? How did she
Mhm.
provide for me in that way? Being a single mom and having a job and like, and I wasn't easy to raise in that way, but she never made a fuss. She always
Yeah.
was able to provide for me. So now when I go shopping, I'm like, wow, she really, did a lot for me in that way. So,
Mm.
but yeah, so those are individuals I always reflect on, whole in my heart, know that they're above me, protecting me in that way because they all have now journeyed on. Um,
Mm.
and then environmental wise, I think most of more of
Before
my,
you before you
yeah,
jump to environmental, I wanted to just go back real quickly to
okay,
grandma and grandpa, if you don't mind.
yeah,
Well, one, I just want to acknowledge your grandpa is proud, and he was very
yeah,
proud to see you in that moment because
yeah,
he was a part of shaping that moment to happen too, for you to be there. And so I felt it too when you were talking about him. I'm like, mm. And then also grandma, I always like to ask with parents or couples, like, did grandma and grandpa ever ask or not ask, but share with you how they met?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I don't think when they were still with us, they mentioned it, but I did kind of ask, because I was looking
Mhm.
into relatives and clanships, and
Mhm.
I was like, I would ask my family, my aunties, how did grandma and grandpa meet? Apparently they met at a or enemy way ceremony out in the way. And, they met in between because my grandmother was more so from like Whitehorse, and my grandpa was from Pueblo Pintado, which is like maybe a 10-mile in between um, the communities. And they met in the middle at an enemy way ceremony. I don't know if it was second night, but I know
Hey.
they met at a ceremony, and that's how they
Oh,
met
I
each
love
other.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if she had a lot to change. Eh? You want to
Hey, to
dance again?
dance. Well, she dressed very nice, so I think, from my memory, I think that might have been, the attraction of her. But yeah, yeah,
So,
she
so
used to
tell
have the.
folks, tell us about her jewelry. But after you tell us about jewelry, tell folks who are non the ne what I was referring to about the coins.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So actually, that's what I was going to say. She would have those silver dollars on her outfits, on her material, which I guess in the times was a big thing. So they would have the silver dollars as buttons or on their velvet shirts that they
Yeah.
would wear, which kind of was like fancy. Um, but yeah, that's interesting you said about the coins. That's what brought up that memory. But the coins is at these summer ceremonies that we have um, during the social times. They would dance in a circle, and it was the women. Oh no, it was the men who would approach the women to dance, and the women would ask for like a compensation. Hey, like, you're gonna want me to dance, but you gotta pay me. So they would either give them, coins or other things for their ability to dance. It's kind of like a Navajo debutante kind of situation. If you
It kind
will.
of made me because I thought it was the other way around. I thought women get to ask
Oh,
the men to dance, but they have to pay them for the
to
dance.
dance.
So
Yes,
I'm
you're
like,
correct.
oh, so we
You're correct.
created this what is it called? The Sadie Hawkins
Oh
dance?
yeah, Cindy Hawkins. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah. It
were the
was.
original founders of that.
You're correct. There was the woman who would ask the men, and so they would seek them out. You're correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
what's one value from grandma, one value from grandpa, and one value from your mom that you feel has you embody and that show up in who you are today?
Oh, I think one value from my grandmother was um, kind of the acknowledgement that it was okay to be who you were. You know,
Oh,
it was, she knew at that time that I was a little bit more effeminate. So, she honored that. For my grandfather, I think it was more so, the value of language because he spoke Navajo primarily, but as I got older, he would learn some English words,
oh,
that we would share. And then from my mother, I think from her, I learned independence, the understanding of independence because, her and my father divorced when I was born, per se. But she always allowed me to have that relationship with my father, which was great. Um, but she also was one of those people who was like, okay, I was with him. I don't need to be with him. I'm okay. I will provide for you. I will provide for us. So that sense of independence of not having to be dependent on someone else as well. So yeah. Hence probably that's
Those,
why I'm still single. Hey, just
hey.
kidding.
Oh, don't worry. They're out there. You
Yeah.
just got to be picky. I think that's the I think that's the magic. You have to be picky
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you deserve enough. You deserve all of that and you don't want to lower your expectations and desires. No.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. Hey, listen
Oh,
to
I like
me.
that. I like that. That's some anti-realness right there.
Well, let me tell you a thing or two about that. So,
Yeah.
are you the oldest? Or I know you have siblings.
Yeah. So I mentioned, my family situation in terms of my father divorcing my mother, but um, it's kind of unique. So when I also explain to friends that I meet, I'm like, okay, my mother was with my father. With my mother, my father had three older. I have three older brothers. With my mother,
Mhm.
and then when my father left, uh, or when my mother left my father,
Let me correct that.
I have three younger siblings, and they are with my aunt. So it's an interesting
Mhm.
dynamic, but come to find out in Navajo, I guess it was culturally okay. But I consider my younger sisters, I have two younger sisters and a younger brother, just my brothers and sisters. I don't delineate from them of being who they are. And we all grew up together. Everyone still got along. Everyone, there was really no disruption in our family dynamic. So together, there's seven of us. So I have two older brothers. One of my older brother, Eldon Ebba Naswood passed. And then I have my two younger sisters and my younger brother. Yeah. And all our names start with E, which is
You guys
interesting.
should you guys should come up with a song.
Oh, there you go, a song. Yeah. Yeah. But I think it really confused, like our teachers at school because they would always mix up our names sometimes. But yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. That could be also be frustrating too, because you
Yeah, it
know,
could be like my older brother who passed, his name is Eldon, and I'm Elton. So there's just that one letter. And let me tell you, sometimes I got into legal trouble when it wasn't really me. So I'm like, no, my has a T in it. So yeah.
well, thank you for telling us a little bit about family and some of the individuals, beautiful individuals who help shape you and who you are. When you introduce yourself, you're talking about how, well, you mentioned your grandmother, and I love what she did because I think that's one of the hardest things in being a human being is loving and accepting all of us ourselves and seeing in her to see you and show you to acknowledge who you are. That's nobody can put a price tag on that. Like that is golden. And when you introduce yourself, you also name Two Spirit. And, I don't want to ever assume that whoever's listening, non native or native people on this planet know what that means. But for our listeners who may not know, what does being Two Spirit mean for you?
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for acknowledging that. Two-spirit is more of a contemporary term that was developed by individuals who were Native and who also identified as LGBTQ. Um, and I say it's a contemporary term, but we celebrated, I think, over 30 years since the inception of the term. But it's this term that really looks outside the binary of who we are, like in the Western society of just male and female. And the more simple definition, the interpretation of two-spirit is that, individuals who identify that way have a more masculine spirit and a feminine spirit that embodies our vessel, if you will, or our identity. Um, and it's a term that's more culturally defined in a way that it's based upon gender roles and responsibilities and not necessarily sexual orientation, right, that we have in American society. Um, and it was developed 30 years ago at a Two-Spirit international Two-Spirit gathering that we call now in Canada, in Winnipeg. And some Two-Spirit elders and advocates were kind of sitting around. Um, at the gathering around the fire and just discussing terms that particularly anthropologists and the Western societies had for us, which were kind of very demeaning, right?
Mm,
And they got in this discussion about cultural and traditional terms that we have,
mhm,
right, for ourselves that exist in our languages. And so they came up with Two Spirit from an Anishinaabe, Ojibwe word that
mhm,
interpreted, which is Two Spirit, right? And they further explained that a lot of tribal nations who still have a strong cultural awareness and identity, these terms exist, right?
mhm.
And so when I introduced myself, I also introduced myself as Nugle, which is our
Lovely.
Navajo term for a more effeminate male, a gay male, if you will, in American terms. So Nugle is the term that we had. So when I'm in spaces on the reservation, that's the term I will utilize, right? Because it's identified. And for other tribes who do have terms, I often say that as Native people, language is sacred,
Mhm.
right? And we don't just make up terms
Yeah.
for fun, if you will, quote
Mhm.
unquote. But there's a reason and there's a definition of these terms. So prior to colonization, these terminologies, these understandings existed beyond the binary, right? Oftentimes I say too, it's like natives were cool before non-binary became cool. Hey. Uh, but then again, these roles are really important that we play, whether it's spiritual roles as medicine people or that connection we have with the spiritual elements and creator, but also social, cultural roles. We talked about the enemy way ceremony and the dancing, right? A lot of the times when I go back to the res during the summers, during this time, I would go to, the ceremonies. And it's interesting because then you'll see nugles in the shed house. You'll see what we would term trans individuals in the shed house, and we're cooking, right? And nobody says anything. And those are sacred spaces where they see us in our roles that we play. And then you'll see some of us knuckles outside chopping wood, hauling water, and it's okay because we're able to do that, right? So when you see different tribes, there's different cultural roles that we play. And I've been hearing a lot of those roles from different tribes. Like for instance, our Lakota relatives, it's the Wink Day, and they have the term Wink Day that they use. It's the Wink Day who gives the traditional Indian name to a newborn, right? And that's still practice. And families seek out these individuals because um, it's a role that we were given. Um,
Mm.
so for
Yes, I
me,
love that. Mhm.
yeah, so for me, those identities all kind of intersect. But back to
Mhm.
Two Spirit, I often say too that Two Spirit is a self-identifying term, only because um, there's a cultural connection, a cultural responsibility to it. So
Mhm.
the term is our term. And sometimes I have some non-native relatives say, "Oh, I'm Two Spirit too," and I'm like, "No, you're not." And I say it in a nice way. Some of my friends aren't so nice, but only because they don't have that cultural knowledge that comes with
Mm.
that term. And it's also a form of appropriation,
Mm.
right? I think there was an actor a couple of years ago that identified as Two-Spirit, and he was a white actor, and he got a lot of backlash from utilizing that.
So the responsibility of Two Spirit, what I'm hearing you say is culture holder as well.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, generally culture holders, yeah.
Mm.
Um, but it's also one that you got to accept the responsibility to be those holders. So I
Mhm.
just recently, within the last 10 years, identified that way because I didn't feel ready to take on those responsibilities. And so something I I share too is I've been in almost 20 years of recovery. And I
Mm.
think that impacted my decision to identify as Two Spirit, right? As well. And then also, we have over 500 or more tribes. We all have our own languages, our own cultural awareness, that sometimes people don't gravitate to the word Two Spirit because it could mean something very different in their community.
Mhm.
A very important thing is with the Navajo culture. if we identify and term ourselves Two Spirit, it could be interpreted as not necessarily meaning of a gender identity, but more so a spiritual identity where you would possess a good spirit and a bad spirit. And
Hmm.
as Navajos, you don't want to be seen to have a bad spirit per se. So most Navajo LGBTQ people don't self-identify as Two Spirit. Um,
Mm.
and like myself, when I go home, it's more so I'm Nagle because people understand it. And then I don't not want to present as someone who might have a bad spirit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to explain Two Spirit and Navajo to an
uh,
elder?
yeah,
And I could see why they would think that way when you're, especially if you're defining spirit using that word.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I
So
love that you said language is sacred. It is so sacred. And I think it's so musical too. And I
mm,
would love for you, if you don't mind, saying those two words, because I want people who are listening to say it with us. So in Navajo, you would say
I am Nagle.
Nagle,
Yeah.
Nagle. So you can even see how it feels in your mouth when you say Nagle.
Uh,
And then what did the Lakota people say?
Wink day.
Wink day,
Wink day.
wink day. And I
Yeah.
love what you're hearing. What I'm hearing you say also is that you're asking folks from all over to get curious and explore in their language how they identify.
Yeah.
Because using what is being used now, you said contemporary, is Two Spirit may not land well for folks, especially if you're describing it to the community. So just be very intentional about what language you're using, is what I'm hearing. I think this is great. This is like a beautiful movement that's happening. So much is happening in our world, right? There's this world that you're in and what you're doing and advocating. And then there's other worlds that folks are, the artist world and book writing and music, cooking. There's just so much happening. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that the way you use the term movement, because it is a movement and it's a movement of reclaiming that identity, right? And particularly for our LGBTQ community right now, this social political climate, it's important that we reclaim that. We reclaim our space in the circle that we were a part of. We always had been a part of, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I really like how you termed it a movement because it definitely is a movement. Our younger relatives, our younger folks, particularly in the LGBTQ community, also are a part of that movement,
Mhm.
and a lot of them aren't ready to take on the Two Spirit responsibility. So they came up with their own term too, which is
Oh,
indigiqueer, right? Which still has that cultural identity, but is used more so for our younger folks who are on a part
mhm.
of that movement to understand who they are too, and yeah. So I'm really
And
excited to see that our young
yeah.
folks are doing that.
I love that because you're giving them responsibility and ownership of what that looks like. I feel like we need to do more of that in our communities, in especially us as our fall season aunties, to to um to mentor, to guide, and to allow them to explore. Like, we're going into the sandbox and we're gonna play and we're gonna create whatever sandcastles we want, and that we are not critical. And what we're doing is saying you may want to add a little bit more water there to see what will happen if you add more water. There's a different way when you say it that versus you're doing it wrong. Why are you not doing it this way?
Yeah,
So again, part of that is our language is sacred. And I feel like when we come from a place of curiosity and openness, then it allows our community people to explore and try new things and
yeah,
experiment new things. And when you mentioned the younger generation, it made me think about also, we haven't even touched about the older generation and even like the terms. There's so many terms. You had mentioned gay, you had mentioned queer, you had mentioned um, two spirit, and So there's so many language out there. And most recently I was at the soccer, the recent championship. I was at a party, at a friend's party, and anyway, they were probably about our age. And one person was saying, I don't like it when people use that word. I prefer to refer myself as this. So again, it's there's so much nuance that I also feel like it's the individual's responsibility to name, this is who I am. This is what I like to be referred to. So then there's clarity at the beginning versus us guessing. If we don't know, then we ask, tell me how you
Yeah,
like to be referred to. Simple.
yeah,
Clear as
yeah,
kind, right?
yeah. And that's there's a whole issue, particularly in the LGBT community, is pronouns, right? Pronouns can be a big thing, and I always go back to the self-identifying, like you said, let the individual self-identify. And I was one that was like, oh, pronouns, that's a colonized thing, they're trying to, but then I had a younger folk come to me, particularly a trans person who was native, and they were like, Auntie, can you please refer to me by my pronouns because it's for my safety. Like if we're in public
Ah,
spaces and you
mhm,
misgender me with my pronouns, that could put me at risk for harm when other people hear it.
mhm,
And when they said that, it hit my heart, and I acknowledged it really. And that really made me change my perspective on that, because I'm like, that's my community member telling me
mm,
how they why they would like to be referred to. So now I'm like you, I'm very more conscious of respecting people's pronouns. I'm using them, they more.
mhm.
I identify as he and they. But yeah, and I think it's a learning process, and it's generational, because
Oh
there's some
yeah.
older folks that are like, oh, what does that mean? And I'll have my elder aunties still refer to my friends by their biological pronouns too. But it's a learning process.
It is.
It's a learning process. And like you said, if you misgender someone, just apologize and just refer them as they want to. So, I mean, that's just an example of what you were talking about that I've seen
Oh.
as well.
So I know that you're doing so much work and this movement and letting folks be aware, and you're just doing a lot. But I know you had a dream of becoming a lawyer. Like, where, what happened? What path? Where did the path diverge?
Yeah, yeah. But you have those aspirations. And
Yeah.
I grew up in Winter Rock area, which was like where the Navajo government existed. So like during high school, I would do internships with the tribe. And it just got me very interested in the politics, right? And when I was in undergrad at ASU, I took a federal Indian law course as part of one of my majors. It wasn't a degree, but it was just a course taught by one of my mentors, ancestors, Dr. James Wrightingham. And
Mm-hmm.
he really influenced my decision to possibly become an attorney, right? To practice
Mm-hmm.
law, to know the law. But generally, I think just as Native people, as sovereign citizens, the politics and the law is always a part of our lives in this country, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and one way or another, as Native people, we have that sense of the law. Even our census number, right, which they ask for everywhere. That's a part of that legal aspect of how we're recognized. Anyway, so I went to grad school at UCLA and thought, oh, I started studying in history and law, took some law classes, and I was like, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to become a lawyer. And then I had friends of mine who I made there that went to law school, and they're like, no, you don't want to go. And a part of that is that I didn't want more student loan debt. But then a part
Mm-hmm.
of that is that, yes, when you go to law school, only until your third year can you focus on what you really want to focus on. And what I wanted to focus on was working for our Native people, focusing on federal Indian law. And I would not necessarily have that opportunity if I wanted to go. So I kind of decided not to go, and just out of fate, one of my first jobs out of grad school was with an organization called the Tribal Law and Policy Institute.
Mm,
And one of my mentors, Jerry Gardner, who ran it, I learned a lot. I learned firsthand the legal systems, working with tribal courts, working with policy on things I wanted to focus on, helping our people, right? So that kind of substituted that law school experience, but it gave me the knowledge and understanding on how we fit into this larger colonial system as sovereign nations. And then I've always worked in the nonprofit world per se for nonprofit
mhm,
organizations. And, we lost our grant when I was working for the Tribal Law and Policy Institute after 4 years. I was still living in Los Angeles and I needed a job. So I saw this job announcement and open for a Native American HIV program
mhm.
for gay men. And I was like, oh, well, I'm gay and I'm Native. I live in LA. Let me apply. So I applied for the position and I got the job. So
Of
that
course
was
you did.
so that was a total shift, right, to go into
Mhm,
public health. Um, but it's again still allowed me to work with Native folks and then also the other side of my identity, the
mm,
LGBTQ man identity. So I developed a program there called the Red Circle Project that expanded and was a model for HIV prevention. And I worked there for over 10 years. And that was a really humbling experience because I worked with a vulnerable population, both individuals who were at risk for HIV, who either had HIV and who were Native gay men in an urban city like LA, right? And then we expanded to include transgender natives as well. And we created a big circle. We
mm.
started support groups.
Wow.
I did a lot of advocacy in the big city. And then that was when I was introduced to the term Two Spirit
Mhm,
at that time. And I defined and I explained that term to some of my I don't like to call them clients, but my relatives, right, that
mhm,
were part of the
mhm,
circle. And for some of them, they left their own communities because they were shunned, they were discriminated against. But that term allowed them to be in touch with who they were culturally, and it really
mm,
empowered them, right? And some of those relatives that I worked with were HIV positive. The real humbling and really emotional experience is when we lost a couple, right,
mm,
to the HIV, and it that was the hard part, knowing that they had to transition on, and the first client that I lost or the first relative I lost to HIV, I kind of had self-blame. I said I didn't do enough, you know,
mm.
and I had to process that,
Yeah.
and it really enabled me to continue more of the advocacy, right? And I had my own personal experience. The brother who I mentioned who passed on, Elton Naswood, he passed away through HIV and complication and AIDS, right? But he lived on the reservation, so I oftentimes saw the discrimination he went through.
Mhm,
So after a while, when I realized that, and I started this, the work I was doing in public health, I was like, that was kind of a calling. That was
mm,
probably him saying, this is why you need to do the work, right? So hence I did that for a number of years, and I left that program at a good place, but I want to do more, and I saw other
yeah.
communities that needed to do that. And that's when I moved to Denver my first time and started working for a national organization. Um, yeah, so that kind of took me away from the law, that I wanted to do. But I still do. And then I came back to Denver and I started working for with tribal court judges again. So, it's kind of like full
Full
circle a little
circle.
bit. Yeah. And so I did that work as well. But um, that was an experience too. But I feel like there too, I had an opportunity to educate some of our
Mhm,
judges and our lawyers working our systems about my community. And then this job came along. We were grassroots organizing for a number of years, and we needed a national organization for Two-Spirit LGBT folks.
Hmm.
There never has been one. We are one of the
Wow.
few that exists, and I thought, okay, this is my time. I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. So I stepped into this role about 2 years ago, and it's been kind of really taken off. We're still building our capacity internally. We got our 501(c)(3) status, which is a whole,
Congratulations.
yeah, it's a whole thing in itself. And I had some anxiety because I'm like, we have LGBTQ in our name and equity in our name. And it's like,
Mm,
but our lawyers said, no, you'll be fine. But yeah, so I took on this role, and it's been a great experience for over 2 years.
wow.
Um,
I know
but
that
I
you've always felt like I'm sorry for interrupting, but the that story is like medicine, and you just shared a beautiful arc of, when you left school, I want to be a lawyer, and I'm, very passionate. And when I think of a lawyer, you're an advocate. You're an advocate for whether it's for the nation or for an individual, right? And you still stayed in that thread in different ways. And so it made me think. I was like, it's so interesting how we see one thing, and the advocacy has looked different. It's like different filters, and you're still doing that. It made me think, now that you told that story, what story do you think, creator, universe, spirit, whatever word you use, but what do you think creator has been writing through your life that you couldn't see until now?
wow. That's a deep question, eh? But I turned 50 2 years ago. So I'm 52 now. But when you turn 50, it's just a strange experience, I feel. Like you start reflecting upon your life, right? And I'm like, wow, I've been privileged to live in these big cities, and I experience all these issues in my life, and when I turned 50, that's what I started thinking. But then now that you asked the question, what story is creator writing for me? And I think it's just one of those responsibilities or one of those actions that I'm passionate about. I want everyone to be safe. I want
Mhm.
everyone to have the same access that I've had. In a lot of spaces, people use the term lived experience,
Mhm.
right? And I feel I've had that,
Mhm.
and what can I use from those experiences to help others, right? In
Yeah.
that way. And so when you said, oh, you're an advocate, sometimes people say you're a leader, right? I
Mhm.
have my eldest aunt who's kind of like the grandmother figure in my family. I went home about a year ago, and she was like, oh, Shanat Ani,
Mhm.
you're not Ani. She called me a leader, and I didn't know how to take that.
Oh.
I didn't know how to take that. And I was like, it really made me think about it like, wow, she thinks of me that way, right? Because she's like, you're always traveling, you live in DC. And so, I'm very humbled about that recognition, but I think my spirit, my understanding is that I want to make I want to make better for other people, right? In a way, whether it's through the work that I do, through the conversations, the relationships I make. That's just kind of what I want to do. So I think creators writing a novel, a but that that lived experience really plays a role in my life. That reflection, right? And that helps me to develop different ways of thinking, different strategies, different programmings, if you will, when I
Mhm.
contextualize it in the work, right?
Yeah.
Um, I often tell people, like when I was working for other jobs, I still wanted to do LGBT stuff. So
Mhm.
I had to kind of like sneak it by or be strategic to do it.
Yeah.
But now I can just wake up every morning and do that. And I feel so blessed that I'm excited to get up and do this work every day, and have that responsibility.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I love that she saw you that way. I'm going back to earlier when you said, how I have other identities depending on people and places. So I have to ask, tell us about Eartha Quake.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. So Eartha Quake is my other persona. It's my drag name. I've done Indigenous drag, God, for over 10 years.
Wow,
About
really?
10 years, yeah. It started out at a gathering that we had in Santa Barbara with other LGBT folks. It was Valentine's Day. People were away from their partners, people were little. So we were like, let's do this talent show. And we went to the local Kmart. I had an elder tell this story a couple of weeks ago, but she says, "Yeah, we saw Elton at the local Kmart, and you know how they have those Valentine negligees? They were on sale." And then we went to the talent show, and there was Elton wearing that negligee with the heart, and that's where Eartha Quake was born.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
okay, because we're learning about Eartha Quake. What does Eartha get to say that Elton can't?
Oh my God. You know, it's funny. Not only what I can say or can't say, but Eartha's a little rugged. She gets a little, risque in her term, a reverse cowgirl,
Hey.
stuff like that. Um, but it's interesting because when I transition into my drag persona, once I put on pantyhose, it's just a weird thing. This is my own self-description. When I put on the pantyhose, like my whole persona changes. From
Wow.
being more like Elton to Eartha. And it might be the nylons, I don't know, but it's usually when I put on the pantyhose. Other drag queens I know, they're like, oh, when I put on my wig, but for me, it was the pantyhose. Interesting. And it's like, really? Who still wears pantyhose? But
I know. I was thinking
anyway,
that.
well, they hold our hips in together. So that's a different
Oh.
story. Yeah. Yeah. I had to wear three pairs one time to hold the hips in, but I don't know how cisgender females do it with pantyhose and stuff, but it takes a lot. Um, but yeah, so I developed that at an early time, and then I just kind of evolved into this drag queen and lip syncing and performing. And now there's a good cadre of us who are Indigenous and drag queens. So we do performances in different parts of the country. One of my drag sisters, Landa Lakes, is in the Bay Area, has a big following. And we've done some promotional drag shows for organizations like
Mhm.
Illuminative, for Urban Indian Health Institute. We did some health education videos because the young ones were like, let's do something fun. And they're like, what about RuPaul's Drag Race? So they reached out to a handful of us who did some promos in drag and they really loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Well,
one
I
of the
want to
things,
meet Eartha.
yeah, yeah. Well, Earth is on sabbatical right now. She's got to get
Aw.
her body together. But I'll do some emceeing every now and then. But one of the things with Indigenous drag, at least in my perspective, is that it's not like the typical drag queens you see on RuPaul. I think for
Mm.
us, we tell a story through our
Okay.
performances and even our personas. We wear traditional dress sometimes. Even the act of putting on makeup and different things has a
Mm,
cultural meaning, at least for me, right? Like when
mm,
I put on my eyeshadow, I think of it like a weaving, like you were talking about your weaving, but the design you do, right? What is the meaning
mm.
behind that, right? So it's a little different in that way. And a lot of the times, uh, we don't perform in bars,
Okay.
which is very,
I
it's
like
more
that.
community oriented
Oh,
in a
I
way.
love
So
that.
you'll see a lot of drag shows. And right now, our agency is looking at um, developing a civic engagement project to encourage our community to register to vote. So we might be doing some drag to vote drag shows in the country. So you might be able to meet Eartha at one of those. But
I
yeah,
hope
so we
so.
get very civic minded too.
I
Yeah,
love it because it feels like, the drag, in terms of Indigenous drag, is really
yeah,
exploring how do we weave in our culture and storytelling
yeah,
in this, I don't know if it's not, is it a movement? I don't know how to describe it, but like the community, it's the community and it's another community that's doing its part in weaving in. what is foundationally a part of ourselves, culture, storytelling. And I love, like, I feel like one of the missions I hear Elton's mission anyway is like helping folks to feel safe and feel seen and have accessibility to what they need. And Eartha is also doing that from a different microphone.
Yeah, yeah. And it also, I think, in even my own persona, it allows me to really evolve my feminine spirit,
Mm-hmm.
right? But still tame my masculine spirit when I get out of drag, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I think there's a really good balance within that, for me at least, right? For me at least. So, but
Well,
it's
I
fun.
might to
It's
ask
definitely fun to
Eartha.
do.
I'll say, Eartha, I need some makeup tips.
Ironically, Eartha has her makeup done. I'm still really learning, especially those eyelashes. Oh,
I
that's a,
got mine done. I mean, like I do it myself now.
oh my
Uh,
God, that's a skill in itself. I'm telling you. I'm telling
it's
you.
it's
But
taking practice. It's not like there's some days I got one side perfect, and then this side I just like forget it and I just take it all off. I'm like, I'm going bare bone. I get
yeah.
frustrated.
See, I
Uh,
appreciate our female relatives for doing all that. That's amazing. It is.
it takes work. It does. Honestly, it's funny because one time I was at a conference and, I was with my business partner, and then this gentleman came up. He's like, "Oh, hi, Vickie." And I'm like, "Hi." He goes, "Wow, you look great." And I didn't know how to take that. I said, "Thank you," And then my business partner, she's like, "Yeah, she's always glammed up." In my mind, I'm like, "Oh, is that how I'm perceived?" It's interesting. And I was like, don't read too much into it. The funny thing is, and my mom will vouch for this, is I'm really, really low maintenance. Like if I don't have to be, on Zoom working or be in the public face, my hair is a ponytail. I have a tank top, no makeup, and I have like a short that is like really torn and tethered. And I even have this Johnny Cash t-shirt sometimes that I wear. It used to be my brother's. There's all kinds of holes in it. That's me. As soon as I get off the clock today, that's the first thing I do. I go into my room, take off all my jewelry, and I put on my rugged clothes, and I'm like,
I'm just laughing because I'm like, that's smoking like a true res girl.
and I will go to the store like that. My dad one time came to visit, and I didn't even shower. I was just like all tushy and whatnot. And then I go, well, let's go eat. And he goes, you're going like that? And I go, yeah. He's like, you're not going out there looking like that with me. My dad always looks, boots,
Put together.
Wranglers. And I was like, seriously, Dad? He goes, we're not going anywhere till you clean up. I was like, oh, I got denied by my own dad. So I had to hurry up and shower and brush my hair, put a little bit of makeup on. I go, does this meet your satisfaction, Dad? He's like, that's better. That's better. Let's go. And I'm like, okay. So when people see this, it takes effort, and I prefer to have the makeup, hair in a bun.
Yeah, but
I
there's
get
also that natural beauty, right? And I think, that's important.
yeah, I'm getting a lot of age spots, but I do a lot of the concealer and but
I'm getting there. I'm getting there too.
So, two more questions. One is sort of zooming back out because we talked a little bit about Eartha, your work, and always like folks to share a little bit about what you see in terms of like our community in Indian country, and like what are we doing well right now? What are we doing well right now? And in a loving way, where would you like to see us challenge ourselves? Our Native relatives, to challenge ourselves to be, I don't want to say be better, but to just, thinking about our poem, ownership. So one is like, what are we doing well? And then a loving challenge to our relatives about what could we do more?
Hmm. What are we doing well? I think what we're doing well is that we we're recognizing our sense of resilience, Native
Mm,
people. Oftentimes I get frustrated or just get very angry just with the whole political situation and I think, oh God, it's affecting me. I have to keep my TV off.
Yeah.
And I always have Native friends that will say, we'll get back to where we were. We've been
Mhm.
through this before. It's just a different way of navigating, of understanding, but like we'll be at a good place again. And for me, I interpret that as a resilience, a type of resilience. So I think we do that well. We weren't, as Native people, we never benefited from our societies like wealth or anything. We always seem to always just get by. So we're able to navigate that, right? And be creative about that. So I really love that about our Native people is our sense of resilience right now. What we could do better is to not be so caught up in our lateral oppression, right? That
Mm.
kind of correlates to the resilience, right? If we're being resilient, why are we being laterally oppressive, right? Why are we taking on those notions? um, and um, and be better support to each other, you know, whether
Yes.
it's different tribes, different communities, different organizations, but how can we collectively band together, you
Mhm.
know, to strengthen that resilience, right? But
Yeah.
I think we could do better about that. I mean, right now, just even within our own Navajo community, it's politics time. It's all these different things are being discussed. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we should think about how can we all do better, right?
Mm.
Um, and as you can tell, I'm very politically minded in that way, but just having these conversations, for me, my sense of resilience, my sense of like feeling better is being in community. I really kind of embrace that now, whether it's going to be at a conference or whether it's on a Zoom. Um, that really gives me joy right now, is finding that community and being with them in that way. So yeah, that's kind of really helped me. And then plus just the COVID effects. Yes, that was 6 years ago, but I'm such an extrovert that during that time I had to become an introvert, and that was so crazy for me. I was like, ah. Um, yeah, and I caught COVID 3 times, and everyone laughed about me. They said, "Of course you'll catch it 3 times. You're such an extrovert. You talk to everyone." I was like, "Yeah, right," but still. But yeah, so I think that lends me to want more too to be in community, right? So, but yeah, being resilient is a good quality, and then um, supporting each other more. I think we could do better.
Yeah. Those are great, 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 great offerings for all of us to be thinking about. And we have to celebrate things. And we also have to look within ourselves to see what can I shift. And
Mm,
having conversations, I think, is important. You had named. I think the more dialogue we have, the more we're able to understand. And I really believe being in community is important. I feel like in these past couple of years, I almost feel like there's a strategy to not be in community, to
mm.
be in a fear-based mindset. And so I think the offerings you're offering are so beautiful. What's next? Is it a book? Is it a movie? Is it yeah, what's next for you?
Good question. What's next for me? Um, I think, you know, personally, what's next for me is just to become more healthy because as I'm getting
Mm,
older, I'm noticing like I gotta eat better. I gotta make sure that I take time mentally to take care of myself. Don't travel as much as I do, right? That's the other thing. It's so funny. My family at church follows me on social media, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we saw you here and there," and I just think it's kind of funny. But but just taking better care of myself personally as I'm growing older, start kind of thinking of adult things, even though I'm 52, like maybe um, getting a home. I learned this concept of generational wealth recently. And so that's kind of really been on my mind. And I'm like, who's going to take care of me? Like, I may have to go to an LGBT home in Palm Springs, maybe, but
That sounds nice.
I know I have a cute little boy, but yeah. So I'm kind of thinking of that personally, just as I'm getting older, just to be better and do better with myself. Um, and then professionally, like continuing this role with this organization, providing more services, seeing the impact that we're having, but it's an evolving process, and I have to remind myself, you planted the seeds, the roots are growing. Now you got to kind of take care of it, right? And
Mm,
and kind of let it grow to where you want it to be. And who knows how long I'll be in this position, but it's just a great opportunity to again help our relatives. So
mm.
yeah, that's kind of what I see. Nothing big like doing I don't know, maybe a documentary. I don't think I
Yeah,
could write a book. I'm more right brain. Uh, I mean left brain probably. Um, but just continue telling my story,
I love it.
support it.
Sometimes I always, one of my favorite sayings, and I always say this with work and, with family dynamics, is less is best. And sometimes the simplest things can be the hardest things. And, I love that what's next is like, I'm going to continue to take care of myself and be healthy and eat healthy. I think that's one of the hardest things to do. And it's interesting because this month, as I was opening, I was telling folks I've been doing that. Like these past 6 months, I've been sleeping more, drinking a lot of water, just not consume with a lot of outside things. Even though I tend to be in social media a lot, I'm really an introvert. People don't believe that about me, but I'm an introvert. I'm really a shy person. When I get to know you, I'm not.
Yeah.
So it's different when you're on even like the computer, like there's a screen here, right? And so anyway, let's go to fire round. I always do some questions really fast.
Oh my God, fire round. Okay. I always
Well,
see that on TV. I'm like, what would I say? So now I have the opportunity.
okay. All right. I'm gonna start off easy. Hey. Coffee, tea, or Navajo tea?
Coffee.
Favorite Navajo word?
Diné. Hey.
I love it. What's one song that can get you dancing every single time?
God. Share. Uh, Believe. Believe by Cher. Love that song.
I love Cher. I love that song too. Okay, one word you'd use to describe yourself today.
Today. Balanced.
Okay, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, when people are driving and they do their turn signal and they don't turn it off. Like it keeps going and they're still going. I'm like, turn off your turn signal. Oh my God.
I thought you were going to say when they're in the fast lane and they're driving and they need to move into the right lane. Some people just stay in the left fast
I,
lane.
I'm patient with that, but like if they have their drive signal, I'm like, then move. Yeah, that annoys me when they don't flip up their turn signal.
If you could have dinner with one ancestor, who would it be?
Oh God. Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Who's someone you've met that left you completely starstruck?
Oh God. I would have to say Louise Erdrich.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, I met her in Minneapolis, and my friend was friends with her and introduced me. Went to her bookstore, and I was so like, "It's so nice to meet you, Miss Erdrich." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And she's like, "It's Louise. Just call me Louise." And then we just like started chatting. But I was like, "Wow!" I was so like cool with
That
her.
is amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Favorite season of the year?
Fall.
Same.
Love
What's
fall.
one thing that you're still learning about yourself?
Um, that I can be vulnerable. Yeah,
Mm,
I can be vulnerable.
that deserves snaps.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Finish this sentence. Home is,
Home is with family.
mm, I
Yeah.
love that.
And that could be taken in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Ashahat. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our time. I know we could talk probably for another couple the whole day. I know we could. And so I don't know. I wish I had wrote down in English what you had said earlier, and I wanted you to say it to folks. And it was a saying, a Navajo saying
Yeah.
that you said,
Yeah. You're probably referring to Sanayepik Ehojan.
probably. And then
Yeah.
translation it says,
To live a long life to achieve harmony and balance.
okay,
Like,
I'm gonna have you say that on cue.
okay. Okay.
So I want everyone who's listening, I want you to remember that our stories, they're not, it is telling about ourselves, but there's some lessons there. There's medicine there. And I really hope that you took something away that resonated, that made you laugh. You've been laughing from our dialogue today is medicine.
Yeah.
So until next time, walk gently, love deeply, be good to yourself and to others, and keep returning to your roots. And our friend here is going to say to you,
Sanayepik Ehojan. To live your long life to achieve harmony and balance.
beautiful. We love you. Take care, everyone. Until next time.